Welcome to this presentation all about APA style citation. I'm Justin Rempel. So first off, we got to go over what is citation. What do I mean when I say that? A citation is another way of talking about references. It means a time when we're using information, words, ideas from another source. It's not our own thoughts and ideas, it's from somewhere else. It's really important to keep track of those sources when we're writing so that we can properly cite our sources, give credit to the sources where our information is coming from. Why would we bother doing this, citing our sources? It's really important to use proper citation. We need to give credit where credit is due. We need to show proper respect and acknowledgement to the hard work that other people put into researching and writing, and acknowledge their efforts. It's also a very moral thing to do. We do not want to lie about where the words or information are coming from. We do not want to pretend that they're our own when they're not. It's just about giving credit to the hard work and efforts of other people. When we do steal or copy other people's words or ideas and we don't give credit to them, that theft is called plagiarism, and it is immoral. In some cases, it is actually illegal as well. There are different styles or formats that we can use to cite our sources. The one we're going to look at today is called APA style. APA stands for the American Psychological Association, and it's commonly used in the social sciences. Psychology, as its name suggests, but also sociology, education, political science, economics, all sorts. And it's a style that's really helpful for quickly acknowledging authors, especially when there's multiple authors, which often happens in research and studies. Those kinds of sources pop up a lot in the social sciences, which is kind of what this citation style was designed and built around. Where do we need to use citation? Two places, okay? The first is an in-text citation, and that's in the main text of our writing. While we're working on our writing, when we come across words and ideas, information that's used from another source, we need to credit that immediately so that people know when they're reading our writing exactly where the words are our own and where they are borrowed from other people. The other place we use citation to reference sources is at the very end of our writing, and that's all compiled together in a big informative list called a reference page. When we are writing and we need to use an in-text citation, there's two types that we really need to be thinking about. The first type is the direct quote, and that's when we're using someone else's exact words. So we're copying and pasting someone's words from the source into our own writing. When we do that, we need to be very, very clear that we are not rewording or restructuring things. We're using the exact quotation. And the way that we do that is we put these punctuation marks. They're kind of like two little commas in the air. They're called quotation marks, and those come at the beginning of the quote when the borrowed words start, and they come at the end of the quote when the borrowed words end. When that happens, it's really important that you include page numbers whenever possible so that people know exactly where those words came from. The other time we need to use in-text citation is for information or ideas. So we are using the information, we're writing in our own words, but that information, those ideas are coming from a different source. So even though we're saying it in our way, in our voice, we still need to acknowledge with an in-text citation that those things came from a separate source. So how do we do this in terms of format? What does this look like? So whenever we have a sentence, either a direct quote or information or ideas borrowed from a source, when we reach the end of that sentence, we place the in-text citation at the end of that sentence. And all we need to do is have parentheses. Those are the round brackets. And in those parentheses, we put two pieces of information. We put the author's last name and we put the year of publication, and we separate those two things by a comma. The only exception in APA style is if you're using a direct quote. So those are the exact borrowed words. You want to include the page number as well. So then we put in another comma and we use the abbreviation P for page, and then we put the page number or numbers where we got those words from. So in our example, anxiety affects many different human behaviors. We are attributing this in brackets to the made-up source, Rempel, 2020. That's the author and the year it was published. Okay, that's all the information we provide for now for the in-text citation, but you need to keep track of your sources because we're going to provide more information in the reference page at the end. And then there's an example with a direct quote. It has, and then we open quotes with quotation marks. Now we know the direct quote starts. A direct impact on every facet of a human's existence. Now we end the quote with another set of quotation marks. Now we put in the in-text citation, open brackets, Langton, that's the author's last name, comma, 2018, that's the year, comma, P199, page 199, close brackets. And notice that whether it's a direct quote or not, anytime we have that in-text citation, the information comes in parentheses, and the period for the end of the sentence comes after the in-text citation. There's a couple of variations I want to point out with in-text citations. Sometimes we have a signal phrase, so in our writing we introduce, say, the name of the author who came up with the words or information. If that's the case, you don't need to include the author's name again in your in-text citation. You already said that. You can just stick with the year in brackets. Sometimes you can't find the author's name for your in-text citation. This happens a lot with websites. You need to use the name of the organization that wrote and produced the material then. Sometimes you can't find the date. That happens a lot with websites. If that's the case, instead of writing date, you use the abbreviation ND, which means no date. Once you reach the end of your writing, you're going to need to have a reference page. This is a page that comes at the very end. It has the title references, capitalized and centered at the top of the page. And then we list each source in alphabetical order according to the first piece of information, which is the author's surname, their last name. Entries should be single spaced, and there should be a space in between each entry. And it has a hanging indent, which means that every line after the first line is indented. It's a really good idea to use the Purdue Online Writing Lab, the best source for current and correct citation style information. So I've got the hyperlink here. Really good idea to check that out for APA or any other style of citation that you're using. Let's take a look at a few examples. So this is a sample reference page citation for an article. And we use journal articles quite a bit when we're researching, especially when there's study research that's published. If we have an article, we need to put the author's last name, first initial, then the year in brackets, and then a period, and then the title of the article, only the first letter capitalized, and then a period, and then in italics, the title of the periodical or publication, comma, the volume number in italics, in parentheses, the issue number, and then comma, and then the pages. If you're pulling from an article, you are going to have a range of pages. The article will be on, say, pages 135 to 142. You end the citation with a period, and if it's appropriate, if you're using an online source, include the hyperlink as well. I have a made-up source and example on this slide. If we're citing a book, which is quite common, we always start with the author's last name, comma, first initial, in parentheses, the year of publication, period, in italics, the title of the work, only the first letter capitalized. If you have a subtitle, you include the colon, it's a dot dot, and then the first letter of the subtitle also capitalized, period. The publisher name of the book, and the DOI is a reference number if available or appropriate. If you're citing a website on your reference page, which is quite common, you start with the author's last name, then the comma, then the first initial, in parentheses, the year, the comma, month, and date, close parentheses, period, in italics, title of the page, first letter of the title capitalized, period, the name of the website, and the URL, or hyperlink, or web address, or whatever you want to call it. Again, note the hanging indent. Every line after the first line is indented, and it's single-spaced. If you have a video citation, you can do it like this: last name, comma, first initial, in square brackets, the username, the period, in parentheses, the year, comma, month, date of publication, close parentheses, period, in italics, the title of the video, first letter capitalized, and then in square brackets, just the word video to indicate what kind of source it is, period, the streaming service, such as YouTube, period, and then the URL, if it is off a website. Here's a sample slide. If you're making a slideshow, you should have reference slides at the end of your presentation. If you're making a research paper, you should have a reference page. Either way, it'll be formatted kind of like this. The sources are listed in alphabetical order according to the author's surname. They are single-spaced. There's a line space in between each source, and they have a hanging indent, so every line after the first line is indented.